From ancient empires to pivotal moments in modern history, our channel offers a unique blend of engaging storytelling and in-depth analysis. Hit the subscribe button now and become part of our growing community of history enthusiasts. Let's uncover the mysteries of the past together. During most of the 4th century, Gaza was a bustling city with wide, stone-paved streets, grand pagan temples, and a vibrant marketplace filled with merchants and artisans. The Christian community, however, was small, poor, and had no political influence. Their modest places of worship were overshadowed by the towering temples of gods like Mars, the city's principal deity. Religious tensions grew as Christianity spread under St. Porphyrius between 396 and 420. In 402, after Emperor Arcadius issued a decree, imperial soldiers marched through the city, smashing statues of pagan gods and tearing down temple columns. The Grand Temple of Mars, with its towering marble pillars and golden altars, was reduced to rubble. Over the ruins, Empress Ilia Eudocia later ordered the construction of a church, its white limestone walls glistening under the Mediterranean sun. Despite the crackdown, secret pagan rituals continued in hidden courtyards and underground shrines. Christian persecution persisted, though it became less severe over time. The air in Gaza was thick with the scent of burning incense from churches and the distant echoes of hymns blending with marketplace chatter. By the 6th century, Gaza's Jewish community flourished, leaving behind remarkable archaeological evidence. A magnificent synagogue stood near the coast, its floor adorned with a mosaic of King David, dressed as a Byzantine emperor, playing the lyre. Merchants gathered inside, discussing trade deals, while scribes carefully transcribed religious texts by the soft glow of oil lamps. Gaza was depicted on the 6th century Medaba map, a mosaic masterpiece showing cities of the Holy Land. The city's northern border stretched to Wadi al-Hesi, marked by rolling hills and vineyards, while its southern boundary faded into the desert near Rafia. Within its territory lay towns like Bethalia, Asalia, Jeriot, and Kisifim, each connected by dusty caravan routes. The heart of Gaza was a lively mix of narrow alleys lined with whitewashed houses, bustling markets selling pottery, silk, and spices, and grand civic buildings. Much of this ancient city remains buried beneath the modern Old City, where layers of history sleep beneath the streets. By 540, Gaza had transformed into a beacon of Christian scholarship and spirituality. Pilgrims in simple linen robes arrived in caravans, preparing for their long journey to Mount Sinai. The city's famed rhetorical school attracted scholars like Procopius of Gaza and Zacharias Reader, who debated philosophy and theology in shaded courtyards. The Church of St. Sergius, built during this period, was a marvel of Byzantine architecture, featuring intricate mosaics, towering arches, and candlelit sanctuaries filled with the scent of myrrh. The streets echoed with the footsteps of monks, their prayers blending with the distant hum of camel caravans passing through the city's gates. Beyond the city, monastic communities flourished. Figures like Hilarion of Gaza, Barsinophus, and Dorotheus led ascetic lives in desert caves and stone monasteries. Their influence shaped Byzantine and Slavic monastic traditions for centuries. The Medaba map confirms Gaza's status as the most important commercial hub on the southern coast of Palestine. Its bustling port welcomed ships loaded with amphorae of olive oil, sacks of spices, and rolls of fine silk. One of Gaza's most prized exports was wine, cultivated in the fertile lands surrounding the city. Monks and farmers carefully tended vineyards stretching across rolling hills, crushing grapes in massive stone basins. The famous Gazan wine was stored in large clay amphorae, sealed with wax, and shipped across the Mediterranean. Roman aristocrats in Gaul, Byzantine nobles in Constantinople, and Egyptian merchants all sought after Gaza's sweet, rich wine. Scholars like Jerome, Sidonius Apollinaris of Gaul, and Isidore of Seville praised Gaza's wine, making it one of the city's most enduring legacies. Before Gaza fell to the Rashidun Caliphate, Islam had already begun to take root among its Greek-speaking Christian population. The city, known for its bustling markets and towering Byzantine churches, had also become home to an influential group of Arab merchants from Mecca, including Umar ibn al-Khattab. Prophet Muhammad himself visited Gaza more than once before his prophethood, walking its narrow streets lined with vendors selling spices, textiles, and incense. In 634, following the Battle of Ajnadain, the Rashidun army, led by Amr ibn al-As, with support from Khalid ibn al-Walid, besieged Gaza. Byzantine banners fluttered atop the city's stone walls as its defenders, including members of the Jewish community, fought alongside the imperial garrison. The siege dragged on for 3 years, and the summer of 637 saw its end when the Rashidun forces breached the city gates, storming the garrison. The conquest was not just a military victory, but also a turning point in Gaza's history. The city's Arab residents played a crucial role in facilitating its capture, and the site of Muhammad's great-grandfather, Hashim ibn Abd Manaf's tomb, was preserved and honored rather than destroyed. With the arrival of Muslim rule, Gaza's landscape underwent a dramatic transformation. The Grand Cathedral of John the Baptist, built over the ruins of the Temple of Marnes, was converted into the Great Mosque of Gaza. Byzantine churches now echoed with the rhythmic recitation of the Quran. The city's population rapidly embraced Islam, particularly within the urban core, while its rural surroundings remained slower to convert. Arabic became the dominant language, replacing Greek and Aramaic. And the Samaritan residents, fearing persecution, entrusted their wealth to their high priest and fled eastward. The call to prayer replaced the chiming of church bells, and the streets, once filled with Greek and Latin-speaking merchants, now bustled with Arabic-speaking scholars, traders, and travelers. Under Rashidun rule, Gaza was placed under the administration of Junfalastin, a military district in Bilat al-Sham, Greater Syria. This design continued under the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates, linking Gaza to Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad through vast trade routes. During the Umayyad period, 661 to 750, Gaza served as a minor administrative center. In 672, a powerful earthquake shook the city, though records of its effects remained separate. Despite political changes, Christians and Jews were allowed to continue their worship and trade. Bishop Willibald, who visited in 723, described a city where life persisted despite the political shifts, though economic prosperity had begun to wane. By the late 8th century, under the Abbasids, Gaza became a center for Islamic scholarship. In 767, the great jurist Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i was born in the city, later founding the Shafi'i school of Islamic law, one of the 4 major Sunni legal traditions. However, in 796, Gaza was devastated by Arab tribal conflicts, plunging it into chaos. Yet, by the 9th century, Persian geographer Istaqri described it as a thriving trade hub, where merchants amassed great wealth. Despite periods of decline, Gaza remained a significant waypoint for traders and scholars crossing the Levant. From 868 to 905, Gaza fell under the rule of the Tulunids, an Egyptian-based dynasty, before passing into the hands of the Fatimids around 909. The city's economy began to gradually decline, but cultural exchanges with the East introduced new agricultural products. By 985, the Arab geographer al-Makadisi described Gaza as a large town lying on the high road to Egypt, on the border of the desert. He noted its beautiful mosque. Despite the city's hardships, poetry and scholarship flourished. The poet Sulayman al-Ghatsi, who later became Bishop of Gaza, wrote about the struggles of Palestinian Christians under Fatimid rule, while another local poet, Abu Ishaq Ibrahim al-Ghatsi, was born in 1049, continuing the literary tradition of the city. Yet, the decline of commerce continued as Gaza's port fell into neglect, and political instability, caused by Bedouin raids and struggles between local rulers, further weakened the city's prosperity. Trade routes, once bustling with caravans, saw a sharp decline. In 1100, the Crusaders seized control of Gaza from the Fatimids. According to William of Tyre, a prominent medieval chronicler, Gaza was desolate and in ruins when they arrived. Weeds overtook the abandoned streets, and the remnants of its once thriving markets lay beneath crumbling stone structures. Despite their victory, the Crusaders lacked the resources to fully restore Gaza's ancient hilltop defenses. Instead, in 1149, King Baldwin III ordered the construction of a small fortress, completing the strategic encirclement of Ascalon, the last Fatimid stronghold in the region. This new military outpost, though modest, stood as a symbol of Crusader dominance in southern Palestine. To consolidate Christian rule, Baldwin granted Gaza and its surrounding lands to the Knights Templar, an elite military order tasked with protecting pilgrims and defending Crusader territories. Under his decree, the Great Mosque of Gaza, formerly the Cathedral of John the Baptist, was converted back into a Christian cathedral dedicated to St. John. The city's transformation into a Crusader stronghold was now complete. By 1154, Arab traveler al-Idrisi described Gaza as very populous and under the control of the Crusaders. The city, now partially repopulated, began to regain some of its past vibrancy. In 1170, according to William of Tyre, a civilian settlement emerged outside the castle walls, albeit with weak fortifications and rudimentary gates. However, this fragile revival was short-lived. That same year, King Amalric I of Jerusalem withdrew Gaza's Templar Knights to bolster his forces against an Ayyubid army led by Saladin in Darum, a strategic point nearby. Sensing an opportunity, Saladin bypassed Amalric's forces and launched a surprise attack on Gaza itself. The Ayyubid army stormed through the unfortified settlements, setting them ablaze. Terrified civilians fled toward the Crusader stronghold, but the castle's commander, Miles of Plansey, refused them entry, fearing an imminent siege. Trapped and defenseless, the townspeople were slaughtered where they stood. For 7 years, the Knights Templar in Gaza prepared for another inevitable confrontation with Saladin. The fortress, though strategically placed, stood isolated after previous Crusader defeats in Palestine. The fall of Jerusalem in 1187 and the increasing pressure on Crusader territories meant that Gaza's fate hung by a thread. That same year, Saladin shifted his focus to Ascalon, the last formidable Crusader stronghold on the southern coast. Ascalon, known as the key to Palestine and the gateway to Egypt, was far more fortified than Gaza, with towering walls and a garrison that could withstand prolonged sieges. The siege of Ascalon lasted months, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Finally, in September 1187, realizing they could not hold out any longer, the Crusaders of Ascalon negotiated surrender terms with Saladin, agreeing to vacate the city peacefully. With Ascalon lost, the Templars in Gaza knew their resistance was futile. Cut off from reinforcements, they lacked the supplies and manpower to defend against Saladin's forces. Rather than face annihilation, the Knights Templar negotiated a surrender in exchange for the release of their Grand Master, Gerard of Rydford. Saladin accepted the deal, and in late 1187, Gaza fell without a fight. Determined to ensure that Gaza would never again serve as a Crusader stronghold, Saladin ordered the systematic destruction of its fortifications in 1191. The once imposing Crusader castle, with its stone towers and thick walls, was dismantled, leaving little trace of its former might. Despite Saladin's efforts, Gaza's fate remained uncertain. In 1192, during the Third Crusade, Richard the Lionheart launched a counteroffensive along the coast, capturing Jaffa and advancing southward. He briefly retook Gaza, and some sources suggest that he attempted to refortify the city. However, Richard's campaign was cut short by negotiations with Saladin. In 1193, the Treaty of Ramla was signed, bringing an end to hostilities between the Crusaders and Ayyubids. Under the terms of the treaty, the Crusaders retained control of a narrow coastal strip, including Jaffa, but were required to dismantle Gaza's defenses, ensuring that the city remained neutral and defenseless. This agreement effectively sealed the end of Crusader ambitions in Gaza. With the Crusaders expelled in 1193, Gaza entered a transformative phase under Ayyubid rule, marking the city's revival as a key trade hub and military stronghold. Under the leadership of Saladin's successors, efforts were made to rebuild its urban landscape, strengthen its defenses, and restore its economic role. Despite the devastation caused by decades of conflict, Gaza retained strategic and commercial significance. The city, situated at the crossroads of the Middle East, was a critical waypoint for pilgrims traveling to Mecca, as well as traders dealing in spices, textiles, and agricultural goods. By the early 13th century, the renowned Arab geographer Abu al-Fida described Gaza as a medium-sized city, possessing gardens and a seashore. This indicates that the city, while not yet fully restored to its former prosperity, was recovering and maintaining regional importance. To secure Gaza's position as a regional center, the Ayyubids initiated major urban and administrative reforms. One of the most significant developments was the construction of the Shujaiya district, an extension beyond the city's historic core. Established as both a military and administrative quarter, Shujaiya housed soldiers, officials, and traders, ensuring that Gaza could serve as a defensive and economic hub in the southern Levant. This expansion marked the first major growth of the city beyond its old city walls. The Ayyubids also reinforced Gaza's fortifications, not as a Crusader-style fortress, but as a defensible urban center. While Saladin had dismantled the Crusader defenses, his successors recognized the city's vulnerability and took measures to strengthen its gates and key access points. With the establishment of Muslim rule, Gaza saw a resurgence of Islamic scholarship and religious life. Several madrasas, Islamic schools, were established, attracting students from across the region. The city's great mosque, which had been converted into a Crusader cathedral, was restored as a place of Islamic worship. During this period, Gaza also became home to prominent Islamic scholars, contributing to the broader intellectual movement of the Ayyubid era. These scholars played a role in legal, theological, and administrative developments that shaped governance in the region. As the Ayyubid Sultanate weakened in the late 13th century, Gaza became a contested site between rival factions within the Muslim world. However, its strategic position meant that it remained a valuable prize for emerging powers, including the Mamluks. By the mid-13th century, Gaza's Ayyubid administrators found themselves negotiating shifting alliances as the Mongols advanced from the east and the Crusaders still held coastal enclaves. When the Mamluks decisively took control in the late 13th century, they built upon the Ayyubid foundations, turning Gaza into a military command post and trade center that would flourish in the following centuries. With the Ayyubid era drawing to a close, Gaza became entangled in the Mongol invasions, Mamluk consolidation, and shifting political alliances that shaped the late medieval Levant. The Mongols under Hulagu Khan reached Gaza in 1260, making it their southernmost point of conquest. They devastated the city, leaving behind a garrison before withdrawing upon Hulagu's recall to Mongolia. This withdrawal created an opportunity for the Mamluks, led by Baybars, to strike back. Later that year, Baybars expelled the Mongols from Gaza before achieving a decisive victory at Ain Jalut. Upon his return from battle, Baybars was proclaimed Sultan of Egypt, setting the stage for a century of Mamluk rule over Gaza and the wider Levant. Gaza's fortunes changed under the governance of Emir Sanjar al-Jali, 1311 to 1341, a powerful Mamluk official who spearheaded major urban renewal projects. He transformed Gaza into a regional bustling center, supervising the construction of a horse racing track, a madrasa, a new mosque, a caravansary, a maristan, and a fortress. Despite these improvements, political shifts in Cairo reduced Gaza's direct ties to the Sultanate in 1332. Under Sultan Nasir Muhammad, Gaza was placed under the authority of the Viceroy of Syria, Naib as-Sultana, Emir Tankais al-Huzami, limiting its previous administrative autonomy. In 1348, the bubonic plague swept through Gaza, devastating the city and claiming a significant portion of its population. This catastrophe mirrored the broader devastation of the Black Death across the Mamluk Sultanate and beyond. Just a few years later, in 1352, a rare but destructive flood further tested the resilience of Gaza's inhabitants, causing widespread damage to infrastructure and agriculture. Despite these hardships, Gaza demonstrated remarkable recovery. By 1355, the renowned Berber traveler Ibn Battuta visited the city and described it as large and populous, with many mosques. He specifically noted the Great Mosque of Gaza, which had been reconstructed by Sanjar al-Jali, a Mamluk governor known for his contributions to urban development. This rebuilding effort underscored Gaza's ability to rebound from adversity and maintain its role as a key urban center in the region. During the late 14th century, Gaza became a battleground for rival Mamluk factions as power struggles within the intensified Sultanate. In the early 1380s, Governor Agbuga as-Safawi conspired against Sultan Az-Zahir Barkak, leading to his exile to the fortress of Al-Karak. This period of instability continued into 1389, when Barkak was temporarily overthrown. Gaza fell under the control of Emir Yalbaga and Nasiri, a prominent Mamluk commander who had rebelled against him. However, Barkok quickly regained power in 1390, reasserting his authority over Gaza and restoring order to the city. Gaza's troubles were far from over. In 1401, a massive locust swarm ravaged the region, decimating crops and worsening economic difficulties. The crisis was exacerbated by internal conflict. Soon after, a fierce battle erupted between the Mamluk emirs Akberdi and Kansawa Kamsiya. Such conflicts reflected the broader volatility of Mamluk rule during this period. Nevertheless, Gaza retained its significance as an administrative and cultural hub. Between 1428 and 1433, the city was governed by Emir Sef ad-Din Ainal. Emir Sef ad-Din Ainal, a powerful Mamluk statesman, later ascended to the throne of Egypt as Sultan Ainal in 1453. His tenure in Gaza saw continued investment in public patron works, including his patronage of the Madrasa of Burdabak in the Shuja'iyya district. This institution became a testament to Gaza's enduring role as a center of Islamic scholarship and governance within the Mamluk realm. The year was 1516, and the winds of change were sweeping across the Levant. For centuries, the Mamluks had ruled over Egypt and Syria, their armored cavalry dominating battlefields. But their grip on power was slipping. In the east, a new force was rising: the Ottoman Empire, an unstoppable war machine expanding relentlessly under Sultan Selim I. Then came the Battle of Marj-Dabak. North of Aleppo, on the dusty plains, Mamluk Sultan Kansa al-Ghuri stood at the head of his army, unaware that treachery lurked within his ranks. As the battle raged, the Ottomans unleashed their superior artillery. The artillery cut through the Mamluk lines with devastating force. Panic spread. Some of al-Ghuri's own men defected. By sunset, the Mamluks were shattered, and their sultan lay dead on the battlefield. With this single blow, Ottoman rule over the Levant was all but sealed. In Gaza, a small but strategically located town, the news arrived swiftly. The Mamluk garrisons, sensing the inevitable, began their withdrawal. Traders whispered of the coming Ottomans, unsure whether they would bring order or destruction. By the time the Ottoman forces arrived, there was little resistance. A brief uprising flickered, but it was crushed with cold efficiency. The banner of the Ottomans was raised, and Gaza was now part of the ever-expanding empire. Shortly after the swift Ottoman conquest, Palestine was reorganized into 6 districts, one of which was the Gaza Sanjak. This strategic region stretched from Jaffa in the north to Beit Jibrin in the east and Rafah in the south, placing Gaza at the heart of the province. The Damascus Eyalet, under which Gaza fell, became the administrative backbone. This period also saw a major demographic shift. The Christian population of Shubak migrated to Gaza, transforming it into the largest Christian center in Palestine. The city became a key support hub for St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, strengthening its regional religious influence. Gaza's importance grew further under the leadership of Kara Shaheen Mustafa. Kara Shaheen Mustafa, a former janissary who had climbed the ranks to become a powerful military officer and later a trusted vizier of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, led Gaza. His governorship of Gaza was an interim appointment before becoming governor of Egypt, though his tenure was short-lived. After his deposition, his son Ridwan Pasha inherited his position, marking the beginning of the Ridwan dynasty, which would rule Gaza for over a century. Ridwan Pasha's career took him across the empire, serving as governor of Yemen, Ethiopia, Basra, and Diyarbakir, before proving his military prowess against the Safavid Persians in 1579. As a reward, he was granted the province of Anatolia, where he eventually died in 1585. The Ridwans, despite their vast regional influence, chose Gaza as their home, constructing a grand residence known as Qasr al-Basha, the Pasha's castle, a symbol of their enduring legacy in the city. Ridwan Pasha's son, Ahmad Pasha, governed Gaza for 3 decades, at times controlling the Sanjaks of Nablus and Jerusalem. His political maneuvering secured him the governorship of Damascus Eyalet in 1601, but at the cost of heavy bribes to Ottoman officials in Istanbul. Ahmad Pasha's successor, Hassan Pasha ibn Ahmad, became known as Arab Hassan due to his deep ties with the Bedouin tribes. Under his leadership, The Ridwans became renowned for their mastery in controlling and allying with the Bedouin, making them a crucial force in Ottoman military campaigns. He led his Bedouin troops to victory against the rebel Druze emir Fakhr ad-Din, but was later appointed and eventually deposed as governor of Tripoli in 1644. Though militarily successful, Arab Hassan burdened the Ridwan dynasty with significant debt, in part due to his vast family. His many wives and concubines bore him 85 children, leading to internal power struggles within the dynasty. Upon Arab Hassan's death, his son Hussein Pasha inherited the governorship of Gaza, but the city was impoverished. Struggling under heavy Ottoman taxes imposed by Hassan Aga, the governor of Sidon Eyalet, Hussein resorted to borrowing a large sum from the French to cover the costs. Despite this financial strain, Hussein's rule marked a period of peace and prosperity for Gaza. He was highly regarded for his ability to ease tensions between the Bedouin and the settled population, fostering stability in the region. His son, Ibrahim, was appointed as the governor of both the Gaza and Jerusalem sanjaks. However, tragedy struck in 1660 when Ibrahim was killed while leading an expedition against the Druze in Mount Lebanon. Devastated, Hussein resumed direct control over Gaza. Under Hussein's leadership, the city thrived and flourished, earning the title capital of Palestine due to its economic and political significance. He spearheaded the restoration of the Great Mosque and oversaw the construction of 6 additional mosques, Turkish baths, and a bustling market. However, his growing influence drew suspicion from Istanbul. Anonymous petitions from Damascus accused him of failing to protect the Hajj caravan and favoring Christians, giving the Ottoman government an excuse to act against him. Hussein was arrested, imprisoned in Damascus, and later sent to Istanbul, where he died in captivity in 1663. After Hussein's imprisonment, his brother Musa Pasha took over the governorship, implementing a harsh anti-French and anti-Christian policy to appease the Ottomans. However, his rule was short-lived, and by the early 1670s, direct Ottoman-appointed officials replaced the Ridwans. With the Ridwan dynasty's removal, Gaza's golden age under Ottoman rule came to an end. The city, once a thriving hub of politics, trade, and culture, gradually declined in influence. The power vacuum left behind by the Ridwans led to instability, and Gaza would never again enjoy the same level of prosperity it had under their rule. For Gaza, the fall of the Mamluks had ushered in a new era of Ottoman dominance, and the Ridwans had transformed it into a political and cultural center. But as history often reminds us, even the most powerful families eventually fade, leaving only the echoes of their legacy behind. Join our journey through history. Support our continuity by clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Join the community of Morasel channel on YouTube and explore the fascinating stories of history. Islamic civilization. Uncover its philosophy, eternal values, and remarkable legacy. Modern European civilization. Witness the inventions and discoveries that transformed the world. Ancient civilizations. Journey through ancient Egypt, the dawn of civilization with its majestic temples. Babylonian legends. Delve into eternal myths that shaped human history. Ancient Greece. Explore the birthplace of philosophy, democracy, and epic mythology, from Socrates and Plato to the glory of Athens and Sparta. Discover how we got here. Be part of our journey.